Welcome to Inspiring Voices from the Classroom, a one-of-a-kind show designed to recognize and highlight current mathematics educators and provide a positive platform for their authentic voices to be heard. We have an amazing guest for this episode, Georgina Rivera. She is a passionate and kind-hearted mathematics educator, coach, presenter, author, and servant leader. She is a presenter at the local and national levels on best practices in mathematics teaching, learning, professional learning communities, mathematics coaching, leadership, culturally relevant practices, and equitable math teaching practices. Inspiring Voices from the Classroom would love to welcome to the show, Georgina Rivera.
Thank you, Chris. I'm so happy to be here with you.
I am excited to be here with you. My team told me you were available, and I'm in our makeshift studio at the moment. I was like, we have to get this captured some way, somehow. And with technology, we were able to bring you onto the show. What are you doing nowadays? How's things going in your world?
So things are going pretty good. We're like about 2/3 of the way through the school year, and I currently am a school-based administrator in Bristol, Connecticut. So I get to see 950 students a day, which make me very, very happy. I also get to see math instruction every day, which is giving me lots of life. And just to see kids in classrooms doing math with each other in community is really the best part of my job. So I'm very lucky to be an educator in a building and with students every day. So I feel blessed.
It sounds like you love what you do. So what is bringing you joy nowadays? You told us what you do. What is bringing you joy? It sounds like what you do is literally bringing you joy, but I'll let you expand upon it.
So there's lots of facets of my role that bring me joy, but I would say my biggest joy, like when I feel the happiest, Chris, is when I help someone find or see the gifts that they already have. And so what I mean by that is two different ways. So I work a lot with teachers and I want to empower them to be leaders. And so one of the things that brings me lots of joy is if, for example, I saw you in a classroom and I was able to say, hey, Chris, did you know you're really, really great at doing that? And then helping you to see that and cultivate that gift, that brings me joy because I know we need more math leaders and teacher leaders from the classroom. So that brings me lots of joy. So I get to work with lots of teachers. And when I see them and then can empower them to be greater and see beyond their classroom wall, that brings me joy. The other piece that I'm very lucky that I get to do is I get to empower students. And so when I meet students and I see their gifts, whether it's math or science or technology or whatever, I do something what I call is speak life into it. I was like, did you know you remind me of an attorney or you remind me of a great mathematician? And when they see that, they're like, what are you talking about? And I said, I see greatness in you. And so speaking greatness into students is something that brings me lots of joy for them to be able to see themselves in the future or the way that I see them brings me so much joy. And actually it's the best part of my day. Like when I come home at the end of the day, I think about my students and the things that they've done and that have brought me joy. I mean, that's really the gift that I get from education.
There's a new educator in the field out there who is listening to you talk about the joy of students. What are some tips or strategies you would give that new educator to cultivate this in their educational environment?
So after spending time in education, the number one tip I would give people is when you're your most authentic self and really connect with students in a genuine level, like really just be yourself, bring your whole self to the school. That's when they can also bring their whole self. And that's when you have the most important impact on students. When I see teachers hold back like a part of who they are, or they're not their most authentic self, kids know, right? Kids can read a room in about 2 seconds. They know. But when you show up as yourself and you show up with a growth mindset that you want to learn about them, that you're willing to make mistakes in front of them, they're also able to do that too. And then you learn from one another. Like when I went to school as a teacher to learn from my students. And I would say to new teachers, sometimes they try to like emulate their former teacher. They try to emulate the person next door. I'm like, no, just be you. You're going to be happiest as a teacher when you are your most authentic self, because kids will love that about you. Tell them about your passions, tell them about who you are, and then in turn do the same and ask them about them. That's what I would give like if I could go back 20 years, Chris, and give myself advice, I'd be like, just be your most authentic self. Like, it took me time to be there because I felt like I had to be proper and I had to be like everybody else. And, I'm going to be honest, I'm very cultural. Like, I bring a lot of like laughter to the classroom, or I like to dance. I mean, these are things I do. Like, I didn't care. So I would dance with my kids and we would talk about interesting topics. But I think I was afraid and I would hold back because I was like, teachers need to act like this. I want to say to teachers, when you're your most authentic and happy self, that's when the most learning happens. So that would be the advice that I'd give people right now. I see people really stressed out, and I think that would help them.
You talk about, bringing your authentic self into the classroom. I remember when I was teaching in the classroom, there's an old school saying, you're not supposed to smile the first half of the year, and then the second half of the year you can smile, to let them know you need business. And I just think how flawed that mentality was, because essentially the first half of the year, you're, for lack of a better words, a butthole to your kids.
Right.
As
right.
opposed to creating a new nurturing environment, an environment that they want to be a part of, and they see the joy in what you're doing. A lot of times we don't realize these children are really looking at us and saying to themselves, consciously and unconsciously, I can be that person one day. Or they're saying, I do not want to be that person one day. But you spoke about this whole piece of culture. I know a lot of your work deals with culture and connections to curriculum. Could you talk more about the importance of intertwining culture and curriculum together for students?
So I feel like culture is a vehicle for learning. And the reason why I say that, Chris, is first of all, mathematics, I think, gets a really bad rap, right? But yet, if we really think about it, before we even started schoolhouses, people were doing math at very high levels. And it was all grounded in culture and what they needed for their everyday living experience to make themselves thrive as a community, right? But yet, when we enter these traditional classrooms with these either numbers with no context or no culture, we don't invite culture in, then kids see math as this isolated thing where we move numbers around, hopefully get an answer or a right answer, and then we leave. But when you introduce culture and you kind of say, this is how math is connected to us or our school or our community, and make it authentic for them, they get totally excited. Like, anytime I've introduced a culturally relevant lesson to my students, or we've done projects where I get to know them, the learning is so much deeper, Chris. Like, it's just not so, I feel like, inauthentic, right? We want to be authentic. Like, there's math that you do, Chris, that I don't know about. My number one job is to figure out what that is and learn from you, and vice versa. I would hope that you would want to know the math that I'm doing and learn it from me. And that's a different type of classroom. That's a student-centered classroom. So that's why I say culture is so important, because the way that we view the world is through culture. Like, you have your experiences, Chris, and I have mine. Both of those are important and they're valid and they belong in math classrooms. And so the more we can do that, the more we are going to create places where students are going to not only thrive academically, but they're going to be seen and heard and valued. And maybe that's how we'll get more people to want to be, like you said, math teachers, right? Right now, people are avoiding it. Like, it's one of those areas where people don't want to come. Well, if it's not joyous, I wouldn't want to come either. But can we invite in culture and make it a different space?
And this whole concept of culture and this notion of culture, understanding every child that comes into the environment has a cultural background, has something that is valuable. And a lot of times when we get into mathematics experience, tell them to leave all that stuff at the door to learn about math. And the more, as you have stated, we can bring it in, it enriches the experience. And then also everyone can see that the beauty of mathematics is that, as you have stated, every culture contributed to mathematics in some facet. But our job as educators is to harness all the things that these cultures have put into mathematics and then share it with our children. That's how we always say children. The audience knows I love to say children, so that students to really make it real to them. Mm-hmm. But to really harness what they bring into it. And I'm thinking about these young learners. I know you've had the opportunity to work with learners at a variety of different age levels. But when I think about these young learners, and math identity is one of the big things we talk about on this show, How do you cultivate? I'm pretty sure I know you're going with this. I'm kind of like giving you an alley oop, as they say in basketball. How do you cultivate their mathematics identity?
So, I mean, I get to work in my elementary math coach role. I get to work with really young math learners. And if you've never had the chance to be in a kindergarten or first grade math class, I would recommend that everybody spend some time there because kindergartners have a whole lot to say about math. I mean, they're honest and they're excited. And at that point, we're just starting to develop their identity. And so, what we want to do is we want to make sure we're positioning them in ways where we're using their funds of knowledge and really helping them to see that they are all doers of math. Like we talk about math. And one of the things that I worked on with a lot of my kindergarten teachers is we do math all day long. If you really think about it, like before it used to be like, oh, we do 60 minutes of math. I'm like, no, you did it all day long. You're walking to a class. You can count the number of steps. There's shapes all around the school. Out at recess, you're taking turns. You're using all of these numbering systems. Kids make up games with math. All of that shapes your identity. But what we need to do for young learners is say, hey, Chris, did you know when you're doing that, you're actually doing math? And that helps for children, because I'll use the word children, like you said, to see themselves as mathematicians because they're mathematizing all the time, except they're not realizing it. So we have to make it visible to them. And like I said, making it visible all day long, that it's just not this one little thing we do here. It's something that we do throughout the day. So that is really one of the most important things I think we need to do for students is build that math identity early on. The other piece is doing it through creativity. Like we play a lot of math games and hands-on activities in our primary grades. That helps to build their identity because they learn and grow a lot through play. If you look at the research around play, students learn more through play than they do through like very structured activities. Well, if we make math joyful and playful, that's going to grow their identity because they're going to see that this game that I'm playing that's really a math game is something that's making me a stronger mathematician. And so that will build their identity and hence build their skills and help them to thrive in the mathematics classroom. So those are just some of my thoughts around that idea.
And it's key that, children thrive.
Mm-hmm.
They're with us. I like how you mentioned a lot of times we think, when is math time? Or it's a 60-minute block or 45-minute block, some places 90-minute block. But really understanding math time is all day long. Mm-hmm. And this thriving should not only occur just in small chunks of time throughout the school experience, but thriving should occur all the time for children as they're exploring. As right now in the environment I'm in, I'm looking out the window, there's math literally all around the place that I'm in. But are we harnessing that energy beyond the classroom walls? Or are we so focused on what is in a book, what is on this worksheet, and not really understanding and exposing children to the beauty of mathematics beyond just this classroom environment?
Exactly.
I want to build a little bit more on this thriving piece and some of the things you've hit on. Mm-hmm. If you had a magic wand for the field, a magic wand, imagine you had this magic wand and there's something you can posit to the entire field, what would it be?
If I could take one thing, I would make culturally relevant pedagogy happen in every single classroom across this whole entire nation. The practices that Gloria Lassen-Billings laid out around the idea of academic excellence, where we not only believe that all students can achieve math at high levels, but we ensure that it happens. So that belief system that we know that all children can do grade level mathematics or beyond, that we're using culture to really drive the way that we design tasks and learning for students. And it's the culture of the students within our classroom, creating both windows and mirrors, which is like them seeing themselves in the math, but also learning about, like I said, the math that you do. And then the last one, which I think is really important, that critical consciousness. How do I use mathematics to make our world a better place, but also critique it in a way where if things are not going right, then I can do something about it and use math as a vehicle to make that change happen. When I think about districts, I don't know about districts from where you are. I know you're in Florida, Chris, but we have something called the vision of the graduate, or there's like global citizens, right? We want to create global citizens. Well, global citizens have to be aware, right? And they have to want to make change. Well, what better way than through culturally relevant pedagogy? So the more we do this within our classrooms, we will be helping all students to succeed, because we know what we've done traditionally has not worked, because I don't like to say achievement gap, like that's a poor word. I think it's an instructional gap in terms of the lack of training of our teachers around culturally relevant pedagogy and what they need to learn to help all of our students succeed in our mathematics classroom. So that would be like the one thing I would want everybody to learn about, and not only learn, but do on a daily basis within their classrooms.
Audience, you heard that. Culturally relevant pedagogy is the way to go. Georgina is giving you some excellent information on this show, some practical things that you can take back into your educational environments, and we really can facilitate change and create thriving experiences for the children. Georgina, is there anything you want to leave our listeners with?
I would say my last word that I would want to say to everybody there is, to be a teacher is really a gift. And so for all those teachers out there, especially math teachers, enjoy the time with your students, invest in learning. I learn all the time. I know Chris is probably going to laugh because we're big readers, but invest in yourself as a learner, because the more educated you become on culturally relevant practices or the math standards, because you're teaching standards, the better teacher you're going to be. The second thing is, get to know your kids. Like, they want to get to know you. And the more you know them, the better teacher you can be, because then you'll know how to design lessons that are specially for them. And so take that time, because the impact of a teacher, and I think, Chris, you would agree, lasts a lifetime. So make sure that you're taking advantage of this career, because it's a very special career that we're in, Chris, that we get to spend time with students and get to impact them for a lifetime where, you know, who knows where they're going to go with their special talents, but at least we can say we're a small part of that journey. So that would be my last message.
Georgina, thank you for your time. Thank you for your energy. Thank you for your passion. Thank you for everything that you're doing to inspire not only the teachers around you, you're inspiring educators, but most importantly, you're inspiring and impacting children every single day in the work that you do. Thank you for being on Inspiring Voices from the Classroom.
Thank you. It was my honor.
Malcolm X once said, education is the passport to the future. A high quality education can literally change a child's life. Educators, it is our duty to ensure this occurs. To each and every educator out there, I need you to focus on three things. 1, educating the children. 2, inspiring the children. 3, advocating for the children. This has been your favorite educator, Dr. Christopher J. Childs. Until the next time, keep up the amazing work you're doing. Inspiring Voices from the Classroom is brought to you by the National Math Festival. It's organized by the Mathematical Sciences Research Institute. We're grateful to NMF key partners and NMF sponsors for their generous ongoing support. Do you know an amazing classroom teacher that should be featured on our show? Go to www.christopherchilds.com/shows and complete the guest form.